Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Alien girl stunned. Human ship detected. Were they just a myth? Lieutenant Nova Starweave was bored out of her mind. No, that would be an understatement. She was experiencing a level of boredom that threatened to tear the fabric of space-time itself. Her tentacles drooped lazily over the monitoring station of the Celestial Seeker, occasionally tapping random buttons just to make sure they still worked. Another thrilling day of watching absolutely nothing happen in the vast emptiness of space, she muttered to herself, her secondary voice box adding a particularly sarcastic harmonic. Why did I choose deep space monitoring again? Oh right, because someone told me it would be adventurous. The research vessel's monitoring room hummed with its usual symphony of beeps and whirs, a soundtrack that had become about as exciting as watching paint dry on a Zan slug. Nova's third eye was half closed while her other two were glazed over from staring at the endless stream of data flowing across her holoscreens. But then something changed. At first, Nova thought she was hallucinating. The signal was so unexpected that she actually slapped herself with one of her tentacles, earning a concerned look from Ensign Blazer at the neighboring station. The reading couldn't be right. She recalibrated her instruments, ran 3 diagnostic checks, and even asked the ship's AI to verify the data. No way. No freaking way, Nova's voice cracked with excitement, all 3 of her eyes now wide open and focused intensely on the screen. Computer, confirmed signal pattern analysis. The ship's AI responded in its usual monotone. Signal pattern confirmed, Lieutenant Starwave. Match found in theoretical archives. 99.97% probability of human origin. Nova burst out laughing. Humans? Really? What's next? We're going to find a unicorn-class starship powered by rainbow dust. But even as she joked, her tentacles were flying over the control panel, gathering more data. The signal was strong, clear, and unmistakably artificial, and it matched every theoretical model they had of human technology. The doors to the monitoring room whooshed open with unnecessary dramatic flair and enstrode Commander Axel Brightclaw. Nova always thought he looked like what would happen if you crossed a military manual with a peacock and gave it legs. His ceremonial head crests were polished to an almost blinding shine, and his uniform had so many medals it probably counted as light armor. Lieutenant Starweaver, his voice boomed, because apparently he never learned to speak at a normal volume. The ship's AI tells me you found something interesting. Please tell me it's not another space whale mating ritual. The last time we recorded one of those, half the crew needed therapy. Nova's tentacles gestured excitedly at her screens. Sir, you're not going to believe this, but we've detected what appears to be a human ship. Commander Brightclaw's head crest deflated slightly, which was his equivalent of raising an eyebrow. Lieutenant, have you been drinking Zoral juice again? You know that stuff makes you hallucinate that you're a quantum physicist. No, sir, I'm completely sober. Look at these readings. Nova pulled up the detailed analysis on the main view screen. The energy signature, the communication frequencies, the propulsion patterns. They all match the theoretical models in our database. And before you ask, yes, I've triple-checked everything. Unless this is some elaborate prank by the universe itself, we're looking at genuine human technology. Commander Brightclaw's crest slowly reinflated as he studied the data, his 6-fingered hand stroking his chin thoughtfully, making the bioluminescent spots on his neck pulse with interest. Well, it seems the myths might not be myths after all. Have you tried hailing them? Not yet, sir. I thought I should confirm with you first, given that, we're potentially about to make first contact with the species that half the galaxy thinks is made up to scare children into eating their vegetables. Good thinking, Lieutenant. Though I must say, if humans are real, I'm going to win a lot of money in the officers' betting pool, and my mate will finally have to admit that my collection of human artifacts isn't just, and I quote, expensive space junk. Nova couldn't help but grin. Sir, with all due respect, that broken food replicator you bought at that sketchy auction still probably isn't a genuine human toaster. We'll see about that, Lieutenant. We'll see about that. Commander Brightclaw's crests were now fully extended, a sure sign he was both excited and already planning how to gloat about this discovery. Well, what are you waiting for? Open a channel. Let's see if humans are really as crazy as the stories say they are. Nova turned back to her console, her tentacles trembling slightly with anticipation as she prepared to send out the first contact signal. She couldn't help but wonder if this was how it felt to stand at the edge of history, about to take a leap into the unknown. Or maybe she was about to make a fool of herself in front of the entire crew. Either way, at least it wasn't boring anymore. The main conference room of the Celestial Seeker was packed tighter than a Martian sardine can, not that anyone present knew what that was. Nova sat near the front, her tentacles nervously twirling a datapad as she watched her crewmates file in. The excitement in the room was palpable, creating a buzz that made the ship's harmonic stabilizers work overtime. Commander Brightclaw stood at the front, his head crests fully extended in what Nova recognized as his "I'm about to make a very important announcement" pose. Behind him, a holographic display showed the signal data that had thrown the entire ship into chaos. "Attention, crew of the Celestial Seeker," Brightclaw announced, his voice cutting through the chatter like a plasma torch through butter. "As most of you have probably heard through our extremely efficient rumor mill, we have detected what appears to be a human vessel." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices, clicks, and various biological sounds that probably shouldn't be mentioned in polite company. "Impossible," shouted Chief Engineer Rylan Sparkforge, her crystalline body reflecting the room's lights and agitation. "Humans are just stories. Next you'll tell me the Great Space Chicken is real too." From the back of the room, Security Officer Blake Steelclaw raised all four of his arms. "Actually, I have a great aunt who swears she traded with humans once, though she also claims she once arm wrestled a black hole and won, so maybe not the most reliable source." "If I may," interrupted Dr. Luna Quantum Weaver, the ship's chief xenoanthropologist, her hover chair gliding forward. "While humans have long been considered mythical, there is substantial evidence suggesting their existence. Consider the artifacts we found, the consistent descriptions across different species folklore." Nova pulled up her research notes on the main display. "Dr. Quantum Weaver is right. Look at these historical records. The Andromeda archives mention a species that could survive extreme temperature variations and could digest almost anything. The Orion Scrolls describe beings who turned their own planet's nuclear weapons into power sources. And don't forget the most ridiculous claim," added Communications Officer Jade Magwhisper, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with amusement, "that they intentionally consumed stimulants that could kill other species just to stay awake longer." Commander Brightclaw cleared his throat, a sound remarkably similar to a small engine backfiring. "Whether or not we believed in humans before is irrelevant now. The signal we've detected matches every theoretical model we have, and more importantly, they've responded to our hails." The room went so quiet you could hear a photon drop. "They what?" Nova's tentacles went rigid with shock. She'd been so caught up in the initial discovery that she hadn't checked her station for updates. Brightclaw's crests rippled with satisfaction. "Yes, while we've been discussing their existence, they've sent us a response in perfect galactic standard, no less. They're requesting permission to establish visual communication." Dr. Quantum Weaver's antennae began vibrating with excitement. "This is unprecedented. Do you realize what this means for xenoanthropology? For our understanding of galactic history? For my research grant? It means we could all be about to die," grumbled Chief of Security Maximus Ironheart, his scales shifting to a worried shade of purple. "Every story about humans includes some form of impossible survival scenario. They supposedly breathe toxic gases for fun." Nova couldn't help herself. "Well, technically oxygen is toxic to most species. We just evolved to process it differently than—" "Not helping, Lieutenant," Ironheart growled. Commander Brightclaw raised his hands for silence. "I understand everyone's concerns. Yes, if the stories are true, humans are incredibly dangerous. They come from a death world with gravity that would crush most of us. They can survive radiation levels that would turn our great-grandchildren into soup. And yes, they apparently invented something called coffee, which sounds terrifying." He paused for dramatic effect, his crests glowing slightly. "But think about it. If they wanted to harm us, why respond diplomatically? Why not just demonstrate these supposedly terrifying abilities? No, I believe this is a chance to solve one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. And win your bet about humans being real," Nova added helpfully. "That too," Brightclaw admitted. "Now, I'm not ordering anyone to participate in this first contact situation, but I am going to proceed with establishing communication. Any volunteers?" Nova's tentacles shot up before she could stop them. Around the room, others slowly raised their various appendages as well. Dr. Quantum Weaver's hover chair actually lifted a few extra inches off the ground in excitement. "Well then," Brightclaw said, his crests now glowing with undisguised pride, "let's make history. Lieutenant Starweaver, return to your station and prepare for visual contact." Dr. Quantum Weaver, I want you there to handle cultural protocols. Everyone else, back to your posts. And someone please tell engineering to stop trying to hide in the ventilation shafts. We can all see Officer Sparkforge's crystal glow. As the crew filed out, Nova heard snippets of conversation ranging from excited speculation to prayers to various deities. She caught up with Commander Brightclaw at the door. Sir, what if the stories are true? What if they really are as extraordinary as the legends say? Brightclaw's crests rippled with what might have been either amusement or indigestion. Then, Lieutenant, we're about to have a very interesting day, and I'm about to win a lot of credits. Nova watched with a mixture of amusement and concern as Chief Engineer Sparkforge triple-checked the environmental suits. The crystalline engineer's body was flickering between various shades of anxiety-induced colors that would make a quantum rainbow jealous. Are you absolutely certain these will protect us from human levels of gravity? Sparkforge asked, her voice cracking like splintering crystal. The readings from their ship suggest they operate in 9.8 meters per second squared. That's practically a death sentence. Commander Brightclaw examined his suit, which looked like someone had crossed a spacesuit with a tank. The gravitational compensators should handle it, though I must say these suits make me feel like a stuffed Glorin at a fancy dinner party. Dr. Quantum Weaver hovered nearby, her antennae twitching as she recorded everything for posterity. Fascinating. The human vessel's whole composition includes materials we've only theorized about, and their power output, it's off our standard scales. Nova adjusted her tentacle sleeves while monitoring the latest scan results. Speaking of their ship, you all need to see this. Computer, display full scan analysis of the human vessel. A holographic image materialized in the center of the preparation room, showing a sleek vessel that somehow managed to look both elegant and absolutely terrifying. Various data points floated around it, most of them making the scientific team question their sanity. That can't be right, Security Officer Steelclaw muttered, all four of his arms crossed. According to these readings, their life support systems are maintaining an atmosphere that would be toxic to most known species. And is that water just floating around inside their ship, in liquid form? Correct, Nova confirmed, her tentacles gesturing at the data. They're literally swimming in a soup of nitrogen, oxygen, and various trace gases that would kill half the known galaxy. And apparently they like it that way. Commander Brightclaw studied the crew manifest they'd received from the human ship. Their captain's name is Alexander Chen. They've requested a face-to-face meeting in their ship's conference room, which they've offered to adjust to our environmental needs. How thoughtful of them to accommodate us in their death chamber, Sparkforge mumbled, her crystalline structure vibrating with nervous energy. Dr. Quantum Weaver's hover chair spun in excited circles. This is unprecedented. Their technology shows signs of both quantum manipulation and what appears to be, they call it coffee makers. The energy readings from those devices are concerning. Contact team selection time, Brightclaw announced, his crests extending to their full diplomatic position. Obviously, I'll be leading the team. Lieutenant Starweaver, since you made first contact, you're with me. Dr. Quantum Weaver, we need your expertise in xenoanthropology. What about security? Steelclaw asked, flexing all four arms simultaneously in what he probably thought was an impressive display. Yes, you're coming too. And Sparkforge, we need your engineering expertise. Those human systems aren't going to analyze themselves. The crystalline engineer made a sound like breaking glass. Oh joy, I'd always wanted to die examining impossible technology. Nova pulled up the safety protocols on her datapad. All right, everyone, listen up. Standard first contact procedures have been modified given the unique situation. Rule 1. No touching anything without scanning it first. Rule 2. If you see a human consuming something, do not, under any circumstances, try it yourself, even if they offer. Even if they offer. Dr. Quantum Weaver asked, somehow managing to look disappointed despite lacking conventional facial features. Especially if they offer, Nova emphasized. Rule 3. Maintain suit integrity at all times. The human environment is essentially a carefully maintained death zone for us. Rule 4. No betting on human capabilities with the crew. She looked pointedly at the commander. Brightclaw's crest drooped slightly. You're no fun, Lieutenant. And finally, Nova continued, Rule 5. All observations must be recorded for scientific purposes. Dr. Quantum Weaver, that means your personal commentary about how exciting everything is must be saved to a separate file. The xenoanthropologist's antennae drooped. But what about my memoir? As the team did final equipment checks, the ship's AI announced another incoming transmission from the human vessel. Nova's tentacles flew over the console, bringing up the message. They're sending us their dock positioning preferences, and wait, what's this? They're asking if anyone on our crew has any allergies or dietary restrictions. They want to prepare refreshments. Sparkforge's crystalline form paled to an almost transparent state. They want to feed us. Are they planning to poison us all with their death world cuisine? Actually, Dr. Quantum Weaver chimed in. Offering food is a common diplomatic gesture across many species. Though I must admit, I'm curious about their definition of edible. Commander Brightclaw straightened his ceremonial crests. Right then, final checklist, everyone. Environmental suits? Check. Translation modules? Check. Emergency teleport beacons? Check. Wills and final testaments? Wait, what? Just kidding, Brightclaw chuckled, his crests rippling with amusement. Mostly. Now remember, everyone, we're about to make history. Try not to stare at the humans too much. Don't mention anything about their gravity being terrifying, and please, Sparkforge, try not to crystallize and panic if they do something impossible. The engineer made a sound like tinkling wind chimes. No promises, sir. Nova did one final check of her equipment, her tentacles moving with practiced efficiency as she watched her teammates prepare. She couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. They were about to meet creatures that, until today, have been considered myths. Beings that supposedly turned their own planet's deadliest features into comfortable living conditions. Well, she muttered to herself, at least it's not boring anymore. The celestial seeker glided through space with all the grace of a nervous giant butterfly. Nova watched from her station as the distance between their ship and the human vessel gradually decreased. The human ship, which they now knew was called the Terra Venture, looked surprisingly elegant for something built by supposed Death-worlders. Distance to human vessel, 10,000 units, announced the ship's AI in what Nova swore was a slightly shaky voice. Analyzing approach vector. Warning, human ship's energy readings are confusing. Commander Brightclaw stood at the command center, his crests twitching with each status update. Confusing? How? Their power core appears to be running on, sir. This can't be right. The readings suggest they're using controlled fusion reactions. The bridge crew collectively gasped. Sparkforge's crystalline form briefly turned a shade of green that usually meant either serious illness or profound respect. Approaching 8,000 units, the AI continued, receiving transmission from Terra Venture. The main view screen flickered to life, and for the first time, the crew of the Celestial Seeker saw a human face. Captain Alexandra Chen smiled at them, and several crew members instinctively backed away from their stations. Greetings, Celestial Seeker, Captain Chen said, her voice carrying none of the bone-crushing terror their legends had led them to expect. We're honored to make your acquaintance. I hope our approach vector meets with your approval. Nova noticed something odd. Sir, she whispered to Commander Brightclaw, she's not wearing any protective gear. How is she not being crushed by their artificial gravity? Before Brightclaw could respond, Captain Chen chuckled. We can hear you, Lieutenant. And no, we don't need protective gear in our normal environment, though I understand why that might seem strange to you. The bridge crew exchanged looks of shock. Ensign Blazer actually fainted, though nobody noticed because he did that at least twice per shift anyway. Approaching 5,000 units, BAI announced. Terra Venture is matching our speed perfectly. Their navigation systems appear to be. Sir, are they using human reflexes to pilot the ship? That's correct, Captain Chen confirmed, looking amused. While we do have automated systems, we often prefer manual control for delicate operations. This time it was Communications Officer Night Whisper who spoke up, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with confusion. But our records suggest humans have reaction times measured in whole seconds. How can you possibly? A common misconception, Chen replied. Would you like a demonstration? Before anyone could respond, the Terra Venture executed a perfect spiral maneuver around the Celestial Seeker, maintaining exactly the same distance while completing a full orbit in under 10 seconds. The crew watched in stunned silence as the human ship returned to its original position as if nothing had happened. Show us, muttered Sparkforge, though her crystal structure was glowing with what appeared to be admiration. Distance holding at 1,000 units. The AI reported. Docking procedures ready to commence. Warning. Human ship's artificial gravity is... Captain Chen, are you sure these readings are correct? Perfectly correct. Chen responded. We've adjusted the docking bay to zero point 0.3 of our normal gravity to make you more comfortable. We thought starting at full Earth gravity might be a bit intense for our first meeting. Dr. Quantum Weaver's hover chair nearly hit the ceiling in excitement. Fascinating. They can manipulate their gravitational fields with such precision. But wait, you mean your normal gravity is more than 3 times what you're offering us? That's right, Chen smiled. We wouldn't want to overwhelm you on our first date. Oh, sorry, cultural reference there. Our xenolinguists are still fine-tuning the translation matrix. Nova's tentacles were frantically taking notes. Everything they'd learned about humans so far seemed to contradict their legends, yet somehow made them even more impressive. They weren't the brutish death worlders of myth, but rather sophisticated beings who had mastered their harsh environment so completely that they could adjust it on a whim. Beginning docking procedures, the AI announced, sounding almost resigned to the impossibility of what it was witnessing. Warning, human ship is sending us cookies. Error, unable to process this level of hospitality. Captain Chen laughed, a sound that made several crew members jump. Just a small welcome gift. We believe in starting diplomatic relations on a sweet note. Don't worry, they're specially prepared to be safe for your biology. Commander Brightclaw's crests were now fully extended in what Nova recognized as his completely out of his depth but trying to look dignified position. That's very thoughtful of you, Captain. We look forward to meeting in person. Likewise, Commander. Our diplomatic team is ready to receive you whenever you're prepared. We've adjusted the conference room's environment to match your ship specifications, and our medical team is standing by just in case anyone needs assistance with the gravity transition. As the final docking procedures commenced, Nova couldn't help but notice how different this was from all the stories. Where were the terrifying warriors who could survive in vacuum? Where were the barely contained berserkers who drank liquid stimulants and laughed in the face of radiation? Instead, they'd found an advanced civilization that had not only mastered their harsh environment, but had developed the sophistication to make it comfortable for others. They weren't oblivious to their world's dangers. They were so aware of them that they could precisely control them. Docking complete, the AI announced. Warning, human hospitality levels exceeding safety protocols. Recommendation, update first contact procedures to include sections on handling excessive thoughtfulness. Commander Brightclaw straightened his uniform. Well, team, this is it. Time to make history. Try to remember your training. Don't accept any drinks without scanning them first. And please someone wake up Ensign Blazer before he misses everything. As the contact team prepared to board the Terra Venture, Nova had a feeling that every textbook about humans would need to be rewritten. They weren't myths or monsters. They were something far more interesting. They were people who had turned their greatest challenges into their greatest strengths. And they apparently made really good cookies. The airlock hissed open with what Nova felt was unnecessary dramatic flair. The contact team stood in their environmental suits, trying to look dignified while secretly wondering if their last will and testaments were in order. Commander Brightclaw led the way, his crests perfectly polished and standing at attention. Remember, he whispered through the comm system, we are representatives of the Galactic Science Council. Try to maintain professional composure. Right on cue, Dr. Quantum Weaver's hover chair bumped into the airlock frame in her excitement, sending her spinning in circles. Sorry. Just got caught up in the historical significance of the moment. The Human Welcoming Committee waited at the end of the docking tunnel. Captain Chen stood front and center, flanked by her senior staff. They were all smiling, which according to their cultural briefing was not a sign of aggression, but rather welcome. Nova still found it slightly unnerving to see so many teeth displayed at once. Welcome aboard the Terra Venture, Captain Chen said, spreading her arms in what their briefing had called a welcoming gesture rather than a threat display. I hope the gravity adjustment isn't too uncomfortable. Spark Forge, whose crystalline form had been vibrating slightly since they entered the human ship, managed to steady herself. It's manageable, though I must say, the fact that you can just casually adjust it is both terrifying and impressive. Oh, this is nothing, one of the human officers spoke up. Nova's translator identified him as Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez. You should see what we can do with the gravity in the recreation deck. Zero-G basketball was quite popular among the crew. Dr. Quantum Weaver's recording devices whirred to life. You intentionally removed gravity for fun. Among other things, Rodriguez grinned. Would anyone like a demonstration? No, the entire alien delegation shouted in unison. Captain Chen led them toward the conference room, pointing out various ship features along the way. Nova couldn't help but notice how everything was built to withstand forces that would tear their own ships apart. The humans called it standard safety margins. The aliens called it engineering overkill. Please make yourselves comfortable, Chen gestured to the conference room. The chairs had been specially modified to accommodate their various body types, another thoughtful touch that contradicted everything they'd expected. Now then, Commander Brightclaw began, his crests assuming their diplomatic position. We have many questions about your species, and is something burning? A warning light flashed on a nearby panel, and Rodriguez quickly checked the readings. Oh, don't worry about that. Someone in the mess hall just tried to make toast again. Toast? Nova's tentacles curled in confusion. Yes, it's bread that we deliberately burned slightly to improve the taste, Chen explained.